Good afternoon, everyone. If we are meeting virtually for the first time, I'm Mart, Vice Director of the Graduate School of Science and Engineering of Yıldız Technical University. As being the Yıldız Technical University, recently we are organizing Grad Talks, Graduate Talks, and this is the first of the spring term. And today, I guess we are having the 6th of the Grad Talks. Our intention is to motivate the graduate students and young researchers and to share the latest information from the different research fields. And especially in these pandemic days, at least we would like to break the scientific isolation. So today is a joyous occasion for women across the world. So on this very special day, on behalf of Graduate School of Science and Engineering, it is my pleasure to present Professor Elif KONGAR. I would like to, merhaba hocam, Elif hocam.
Merhaba.
I would like to make a quick review, brief information about your resume. Dr. Edith Konkar is a professor of technology management and mechanical engineering and chair of the technology management department at the School of Engineering, University of Bridgeport. Dr. Konkar has been utilizing various quantitative and qualitative tools and techniques in her interdisciplinary and technology-driven research. She has published over 100 well-cited papers in scholarly journals and conference proceedings. Her research areas include economically and environmentally sustainable waste recovery systems and operations, supply chain management, disassembly, sequencing and planning, electronic waste, performance evaluation, big data and data analytics, quality improvement, engineering education programs, and female participation and efficiency in engineering disciplines, and K-12 STEAM education. Dr. Konkar is the department editor of IEEE Transactions and Engineering Management and an active member of various national and international technical committees, advisory boards, program committees, and editorial boards. And also Professor Konkar received her bachelor degree and master's degree from the industrial engineering from our university, Yıldız Technical University, and PhD degree in industrial engineering from Northeastern University. Before joining the University of Bridgeport, Dr. Konkar was a visiting researcher in the Center of Industrial Ecology at the Yale University. She also served as the coordinator and lecturer of the Logistics Certificate program at the Yıldız Technical University, where she held an assistant professor position. So today the topic will be the future of diversity and inclusion in the digital age. We are with you now, hocam, Elif hocam.
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to this talk. It's a great privilege to be speaking to my alma mater. First of all, I would like to say hello to Dr. Güneri, who was my professor. And I also have Dr. Tuskaya, who was our student, now an inspiration and a great leader at Yıldız Technical University. Again, thank you so very much for having me. It's such a privilege. As I've been introduced, which was very humbling and equally embarrassing, today I want to talk about the future of diversity and inclusion in the digital age that we call nowadays. Another subtitle perhaps might be increasing the participation of women in the engineering and technical service industries. I also created a subtitle and said, where do we stand? Standing for women or for individuals who identify as women in technical industries, including and specifically in engineering disciplines. If you could notice, I put a interrobang at the end of where do we stand to show an emotional response to general statistics and the outlook for female scientists and engineers, and an exclamation mark to show that I have an attitude towards the lack of diversity and inclusion in STEM disciplines when it comes to females. Just to give you a broad idea about the global outlook, I created a simplified version of the global scale. So I said, if we were 1,000 people on Earth, 50 of them would be living in the United States, like me. It is 9 a.m. Eastern time in the United States. Out of these, 26 would be female and 24 would be male, simply because females live longer, which is an advantage attributed to females by nature. Because life expectancy in the United States is 81 for females and 76 for male. Out of these, 10 of them would have, 10 women would have college degrees, at least a 4-year college degree. Unfortunately, the reflection to industry is not in equal proportions. Out of the bachelor's degrees females obtain, only 40% join the workforce in the United States. And the proportion becomes smaller when we start talking about STEM disciplines and STEM related positions, both in academia and industry. The reflection is only around 40%. So there would be 4 females working in industry or academia, and only 0.4 would be working in STEM-related fields. That is, of course, in a nation where average life expectancy is in high 70s. Central African Republic is the nation with the lowest life expectancy, which is 53 years. So before they even get a chance to receive a PhD degree, join the workforce, and start building their careers, their lives cease. So there would be 0 female engineers and scientists if we take a look at the globe based on life expectancies of individuals in different nations. So the numbers are very small. So I wanted to abbreviate the word woman. First, trying to come up with main issues when it comes to women in workforce. First of all, and I'm going to elaborate on every one of these in the upcoming slides. First and foremost, there's an incredible wage gap between female and male workers in the United States and in the globe. So this is not only a national problem unique to the states, but it's more like a universal issue that hinders the involvement of females in technical workforce. The other is opportunities. Opportunities meaning when it comes to promotion, when it comes to salary raises, 360 evaluations, whatever you call them, the opportunities tend to be much smaller compared to male counterparts. One major reason for this happening is the lack of networking opportunities for women, especially in social media and work networking. Men seem to be dominating the networking opportunities and taking advantage of those opportunities much more than women. They seem to be better connected. They seem to be taking better advantage of their connections, both at professional and personal levels, banking on those, seeking career further advancement opportunities. Another issue stems from the lack of mentors, especially we see this in the digital era. Due to lack of CEOs, high-level executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs in female workforce. So we have very few female leaders in tech industry. When you think about as scientists and try to come up with names, the first names that come to our minds are mostly male. Not because females are not as accomplished as males, but when it comes to acknowledging the success, the literature, society, and media seem to favor male and um, try to advertise and make it known to public way more than females' advantages, accomplishments, and success stories are aired. The other is nomenclature. I think the discrimination has been embedded into our lingo. I think Turkish has great advantages because we don't need to state the gender when we are talking. But in English, we usually have a he or she, which makes it very challenging to be gender neutral. And there are some words that are completely integrated into the daily language, such as freshman, chairman. So man seems to be part of the word. And I think it also shows a growth mindset or lack of it when it comes to our daily conversations and the general perception towards women. Now we are not even talking about woman, man, female, male. We are talking about gender and sex being, non-binary. So these things become a little bit more dangerous to talk about in crude terms. I think it would benefit everyone to be a little more careful about how they are saying what they want to say, um, always having diversity and inclusion in the back of their minds. When we use clip arts in our presentations, when we are talking about venture capitals, mergers and acquisitions, my students tend to put hands that are shaking just to see that there's an agreement happening between two. They are usually male hands, they are usually white, which obviously immediately repels anyone other than white male. So now I find myself warning more and more, both my students, colleagues, peers, to pay more attention to these most often unrecognized, unintentional, minute details. I think these are nuances, but I think in this age and era, as academics and scholars and as new graduates or graduates with some industry experience, we should set the tone at a higher level and we should be speaking a higher language when we are discussing technical, academic, scholarly, or industry-related issues. So these are the problems. And again, this is the view in the United States. There is a significant wage gap when you look at the wage distribution among women and men. This has been just released. It is 2019 American Community Survey. And navy blue, the darker blue, stands for the male, and the lighter shade stands for the women. And it is showing the statistically different wage distribution among several engineering disciplines. Um, the problem, however, is not unique to United States. It's a global issue. Globally, women make 70 cents for every dollar to pay for men. The problem is magnified when we take a look at sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. The wage disparity grows significantly in those developing regions. And we know, as a rule of thumb, the wage gap, regardless of the territory or geography, is larger for women with children, meaning for mothers who have childcare responsibilities all over the globe. Um, I promised that I would talk about the role of female workforce in this new era that we call digital era. Um, the relationship between human and technology dates back to 1800s. The first job posting in New York Times was asking for a computer. A computer being at the time the job definition. They were looking for someone who's going to be handling mundane technical calculations and would also be in charge of taking care of the hardware, which is computers. Then, of course, came the radio, the telephone, the television, and we had the first and Second World Wars. So when men were off the field to fight for their countries, women were in charge of especially telecommunication industries. So majority of the calculations and computer related work was being handled by female workforce, and they were dominant when it comes to IT sector. A very good example is in 1946, I'm sure you watched the movie Hidden Figures. There was a group of women who programmed the fastest digital computer for the United States Army. They obviously were not covered by the news. Their pictures and names were held from the newspapers and TV stations. It took them 40 years to receive acknowledgement for this success, and Hidden Figures became a very popular movie very recently. This was again in 1940s. A prominent woman, Grace Hopper, and I'm sure everybody would know the name Einstein or Leonardo da Vinci or Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, even though Grace Hopper was a computer scientist. Um, a computer scientist and a member of the US Navy. She was the programmer of Mark I, the first electromechanical computer. Because of this accomplishment, as you can see in the PowerPoint slide, she was awarded the Computer Science Man of the Year award. So our relationship with information technology, computers, engineering, go far back. Now we are in the digital era, machine learning, artificial intelligence, pattern recognition are coming. Computations are going to be handled by computers. And given that in the United States, over 80% of the workforce work in service industries, the role and needs for women couldn't be higher because women have different skill sets compared to their counterparts. We do have consensus building, which is going to be required when the machines and computational equipment are going to be taking care of the automated jobs, when robots are going to be taking care of automation and manufacturing, mass customization. We are now talking about robotic process automation when it comes to service industries. We see it in health sector, we see it in education, we see it in financial sector, so on and so forth. So it becomes the primary role of female, which is an internalized skill set to build consensus among different teams, because now we are talking about global team building. When we are talking about a corporation, we are talking about project-focused team building, that you acquire the best and brightest from different departments, and we are no longer following a hierarchical, bureaucratic approach to solve problems. If you take a look at the websites of major corporations, such as IBM, Microsoft, Google, the first thing you're going to see is diversity and inclusion. Another thing you're going to be seeing is the growth mindset. So now these major corporations, who seem to be the pioneer when it comes to creating inclusion and diversity in workplace, industry, and society, they are giving hard to solve, impossible to solve projects to different teams in the company. They are constructing these teams in such a way that even if an employee doesn't have an ambition to obtain an administrative role in the company, he or she is still being employed as the project leader for this particular project. When the project fails, there is no punishment. They are actually encouraged to make mistakes, and make mistakes early, often, so that the remedy is going to be possible and the financial consequences are not going to be that detrimental on the company. Another skill set that women bring is conflict resolution. In this age and era, the negotiations, coming up with multi-criteria decision-making, building a structure for customer satisfaction, client segment expansion becomes the key. Now we are not talking about departmental objectives or interdepartmental or even inter-organizational. We are talking about global supply chains that focus on only one goal only, which is customer satisfaction. As a simple example, as a warehouse manager, you would obviously like to have zero inventory in your warehouse, given that the inventory is the hunch of any company, because you are holding assets. They are perishing over time. You're paying taxes out of those. You need to pay the security, so on and so forth. So no warehouse manager would like to keep excess inventory in their warehouses. On the other hand, a transportation manager obviously would like to wait for the truckload shipment to be satisfied so that the truck is going to go on its way, and economies of scale is going to be achieved, meaning cost per unit is going to be at its minimum. So we now no longer consider these to be objectives in the organization. They obviously need to build a consensus and do whatever the customer is asking for from that specific purchase or order, let it be a product or a service. Women also bring, because of cognitive abilities and dealing with complex issues, a great handling when it comes to complex modeling, which is going to be required in the near future when we are looking at these multi-objective, multi-attribute, multi-criteria decision-making, where multiple entities are in the problem environment. And obviously the artistic ability, creative solution creation, and creative decision making are going to be one of the four much needed skill sets in the future. Again, they all tie into growth mindset, which is learning all the time, keeping an open mind, being open to criticism, not being afraid of failing, defining ourselves with our projects and outcomes, as opposed to our personal ambitions and challenges, keeping in mind that everybody has a challenge to overcome, actually more than one in many cases. Why do we want women to be involved in STEM-related disciplines, in STEM industries? Why do we want them to become part of the global economy? Because the involvement is going to create new products and services, because women are going to bring a different perspective to industry, different skill sets. They will contribute to the growth of the economies. And obviously, this is going to allow the enlargement of the circular economies where hopefully communities are going to be built and strengthened. We will also end up with products and services that are going to address the specific needs of women. So it is going to allow creation of new products and new services, hence new industries and new entrepreneurship opportunities for many businesses if women are more involved in economies. And obviously, the compensation, promotion, networking, and recognition opportunities are going to excel, and they are going to be empowered in work environments. And this is going to create a more socially just nation or world at the end of the day. Nothing happens if there's no potential gain behind it. Nowadays, we are always talking about circular economy, implying that we have triple bottom objectives, meaning something, any activity, any operation, any project that is initiated have to be looking at three aspects. One is obviously economical. So there has to be a financial gain to ensure financial sustainability. The other is social justice. It has to look at the impact on society and should be focusing on activities that are going to strengthen the communities, the local economies, the national and international global economies. The third is obviously environmental, which is to add value to the environment or to have zero impact on the environment, meaning to leave it alone, so that our footprint is going to be zero after we are done with our service and manufacturing operations. Without the environmental justice and environmental denial, there's no economic or social justice. Environment dominates pretty much all industries and our way of living. So the first benefit is going to be economical, and I'm going to show you some statistics. What I also want to talk about is what happens to females in STEM, technical disciplines, in engineering professions, so on and so forth, because of COVID. COVID, yes, it was unprecedented. Yes, it's a pandemic, meaning it's a health-related topic. but it bears a lot of similarities to economic recession, something unexpected happening that would disrupt the economy. So researchers looking at the business statistics looked at the impact of human when the economy takes a downturn, and many of the economies, even though stock market is doing really well, prospering even, at the individual and societal level, we are looking at a lot of job closures, a lot of people losing their jobs, and a lot of people seeking opportunity to advance their skills, retrain themselves so that they can re-enter to the job market. What happens to women is more heartbreaking, really. When fathers experience disproportionate job losses, mothers whose priority is to take care of children are entering into paid employment. Yet they are usually hired by low wage jobs, and the women are usually overqualified for the jobs they are holding because they are doing it in order to financially support their families, given that the other parents lost their jobs. In addition to having to gain additional employment so that additional income is going to come to the household, they also make up for the loss of jobs at the emotional level for men, and they seem to be taking more and more responsibility when it comes to household and childcare responsibilities, meaning they also work more at home in addition to getting an additional low-paying job. So individual unemployment doubled during an economic recession. Women's caregiving time, this includes not only children for sandwich generation, for women around 40s who are responsible for taking care of their parents or elderly, in addition to their young children or relatives in their communities, increased men's caregiving time only slightly. And we see that men are spending their time on more leisurely activities compared to women at the time of crises. So if we were to put a number on what's going to happen if the female workforce is introduced into the global workplace, the boost to the global annual gross domestic product by 2025, which is 4 years from today, is estimated to be 28 trillion US dollars if women played an identical role to men in labor markets, in markets where people are employed. However, when we take a look at the working age population in the workplace, we see that men dominates in terms of number and in terms of percentage. Only 50% of the women are employed. The others remain home. One big disadvantage of it is self-service economy is not included in the GDP calculations of any nation. For instance, filling your own gas, cleaning your own table in McDonald's or a food franchise, doing your own laundry, drying it, ironing it, cleaning your own house. Anything you do not outsource and do yourself, including childcare, shopping, driving, so on and so forth, are items that belong to unregistered economy. And we know women contribute 20% of the GDP's unregistered economy. However, obviously they do not get paid and taxes are not paid out of these efforts, given that there are no earnings when it comes to contribution of women to daily economies. So where are the women working? Well, they are not working as industry leaders. Only 4% of the women are the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. 23% of women are in the parliament. And these are big issues because this is governance in industry and countries. So even though the numbers might be similar, meaning 50% of the female population are working and contributing to the economy, they do not play a major role in the governance, meaning digital era is set to give a voice to females because of the existence of social media and additional networking opportunities it brings. The contribution of women when it comes to high-level executive level decision making is very limited. 62 almost percent of women work in service. Others are either mining or manufacturing industries or construction industries. And in developing countries, we see women majorly contributing to the agrarian activities. Now the attention is being given because today is the International Women's Day. And with the growing emphasis on inclusion and diversity in this new era, there's a lot of attention given in the press to the involvement of females in the digital era. So I really like this quote, which came from the director of the board and the vice president, Catherine Chen, of Huawei. She said, gender equality is not about women and men sharing the mindsets and behavior. Because of internalized oppression and internalized sexism, women at high-level positions feel pressured, or it's a cognitive pressure, which often goes unnoticed, to act more masculine, to leave their identity behind so that they are gonna act more manly, trying to become more gender neutral and having the same mindset or the characteristics that we commonly associate with males. It is not about that, however. It is about equal opportunities and rights, which can only come from a more inclusive, diverse, and healthy society. So starting with the wage gap, in terms of the opportunities, recognition, opportunities to excel in career, growth and development opportunities, networking opportunities, recognition opportunities need to be equal when it comes to male workforce. So same thing happened when we went through recession. This is what COVID-19 pandemic did to global economy. Obviously, because of the loss of jobs in the household, mothers had to go back to industry and start getting paid employment, because if you are a woman, you would know that you are working 24/7, whether you are paid or not. Now, the Vice President Kamala Harris called this a national emergency, saying the negative impact of the COVID pandemic had on women and the female workforce. They ended up struggling between keeping their jobs or finding new jobs and taking care of their children, whether they are at the school age or not. So when there was a need to break the tie, so one of them had to leave their jobs because someone had to take care of somebody. It can be a child or an elderly or someone who's in need of being taken care. Mothers obviously were much likelier than fathers to leave their work. And when they wanted to go back to the workplace, they usually settled for less paying jobs and without much career prospects. So they not only looked at the industry professionals, women who were involved in industry, they also asked STEM students, science, technology, engineering, and math students, saying, has the pandemic affected your future career prospects? 60% of them said yes, it has affected their perception. And we know when a woman works in the United States, they usually do work in healthcare industries, doctors, nurses, teachers, shop assistants, that are often held by women. And these people have found themselves as the frontliners during the pandemic, meaning they had one-to-one contact with the possibly infected population. However, even though they constitute majority of such industries, they are barely represented in the pandemic decision-making process. So looking at the 87 countries and their dedicated COVID-19 task forces, including 17 European Union member states, 85%, slightly over than 85% of these task forces were led by men. So even though a majority of the workers were females contributing to the essential economy during the time of pandemic, risking their lives, they were not involved in high-level decision-making. So this, I highlighted it to give it a greater emphasis. The problem is not, again, unique to the United States. I already tried to talk about the global picture. There's a study that has been published more than a decade ago. They surveyed 115 Canadian women in technology industry. They were talking about the gender discrimination in tech industry in Canada. Most of the respondents attributed a high proportion of the challenges they encountered to gender, just because they were identified as females. And what was important about this article, according to my opinion, was that the respondents were most likely to resolve these challenges through personal or do-it-yourself solutions, meaning they do not seek an administrative counsel, they didn't go to human resources, they didn't seek advice from an organization or a support network or from their peers. They just try to solve these issues on the fly, on the go, and they usually bring unique responses to every challenge they encounter because they are females. Again, if we take a look at the STEM workforce in another country, this is Australia, it is very similar to the United States. Women are 50%, a little slightly higher percentage of the population. Almost 50% work in the workforce, and around 30% works in STEM workforce. When there is a need to leave the job so that they can take on additional responsibilities, it is usually the women who sacrifice their professions, obviously because of the wage discrepancy, growth opportunities, not being able to build a career, because working doesn't mean that you have a career or you have career development opportunities or you have higher income earning potential. It just means you're working. So where you're working, how you're compensated, what are the conditions of your workplace, your health insurance, retirement, what are the premiums, are very important questions to ask when it comes to women. So we cannot take a head count and see, hey, these women are working in tech industry, they're okay. What they are doing and what problems they're encountering are more intelligent questions to ask. Again, going back to digital era, as much as we would like to say social media, increasing participation in social media, and the equalizing effect of social media, giving everyone a chance to be heard, regardless of their educational attainment, demographic background, age, race, so on and so forth, whatever criteria they can be discriminated against. That's not the case. First, we are more inclined to think that, hey, everybody these days are connected to the internet, which is not true. Only 50% of the population has access to internet. And there's a gender gap. Females seem to be using it less compared to their male counterparts. 95% of the population, the global population, has access to mobile cellular network. Over 3 billion of people, out of which more than half are women, in low and middle income countries who do not own mobile phones. So yes, there is connectivity. Yes, there are opportunities when it comes to technological infrastructures because of the global economy and the overall wealth that's been generated in the globe. This advantage is not extended to individual usage as much as we would like to think, because over 3 billion people do not have mobile phones. So yes, the voice is definitely increasing in its volume, but not increasing in its quantity. When we take a look at STEM being the focus, in the United States, if a woman is classified as a STEM worker, which is significant because they pay higher premiums if their jobs involve computer utilization, meaning their healthcare, insurance, etc., are at a higher level, which might result in them getting paid less at the end of the day because they are at a higher premium scale. 50% work in biological sciences, 40% are chemists, material scientists. Computer science, information technology have always been more favorable to females, so 26% work in computer and mathematical occupations. Only 16% work as engineers and architects. So the first thing that comes to mind is, are women handicapped? by their upbringing, because of the way they are raised, because of society mandates or social pressures, or is it discrimination from men or surrounding peers, and more, not just in science, but also in other areas. So is there something wrong from the get-go? Or are women less bright than men? So Marilyn Savant is a genius, is among the uh, people who possess the highest IQ in the world. She was holding a blog, and this was one of the questions that were raised in her blog. So first of all, I thought her response was very clever. Just because we see fewer female in STEM-related disciplines, let's not be arrogant there for a second and say, hey, there's no evidence that indicates that the sciences attract the brightest people. I mean, looking at our colleagues and students, I would like to counter argue, but we have a lot of high IQ people working in creative sciences, working in arts, architecture, social sciences. So not every genius or creative person or highly intelligent individual need to choose science as their career choice. So I think the way we ask the question, hey, how come women are not involved in science? Do they lack IQ? Is a wrong question from the beginning. And because of this stigma, I find it very valuable when I talk to female students or colleagues. I always try to find a word of encouragement, something that I praise about their work and all. So I try to tilt the scale to their advantage, starting my conversation with the fact that women live longer than men was probably a poor attempt in achieving that. So trying to encourage and acknowledge and entice females around us, I think goes a long way in getting rid of or eradicating this stigma associated with the profession, which is a STEM related profession. When we look at the statistics, and I'm going to try to prove it in many different ways to you, upbringing, family, rises as the number one cause, not discrimination, conscious or not, from men, for the reason of lack of involvement of female in STEM-related activities, sciences, technology, engineering, and math. It's not the discrimination that's encountered. So you know where I'm going with this. I was very lucky to be brought up with by two very open-minded individuals. For them, there was nothing more important than education. I would like to dedicate this speech and today, our day, to my mom, who was the first female general manager of an insurance company, not only in Turkey, but in Europe at the time. She had a brilliant career of over 40 years. And if it wasn't because of her hard work and from what we have observed with my sister in our homes, I don't think I would have sought a career and valued education, and I wouldn't be dedicated to my discipline and scholarly activities. So it all starts in the family. You don't have to bear children in order to play a mother role in somebody's life. If you have a higher education, there has to be a woman in your life. If you are listening to this conversation late afternoon as opposed to watching TikTok or taking a walk in beautiful Bosphorus where the weather is much nicer than where I am right now, is because you had a strong woman in your lives who valued education and who told you to study and learn from books, literature, and learn from others. I learned from my students. I learned from my professors. I'm sure I'll learn from you at the end of this discussion. Keeping an open mindset requires continuous learning and dedication to rational scientific facts. So upbringing rises as the most important factor when it comes to successes of people. When you measure the average IQ of females and males, we see that they are equal. So there's no difference when it comes to the averages. However, when men compared to women, there's a higher variation, dispersity between men and women. This is Madame Curie, obviously. This is the serial killer who used to kill babies. She was the most evil person I was able to find. So regardless of the IQ being equal, we see more extremes compared to men and women, meaning more men are in jail, more men are criminals, criminally insane or insane, compared to women. Now let's talk about the other side, geniuses. This is Einstein, and of course this is Atatürk, two commonly known geniuses, male. Madame Curie is considered to be one of the most prominent genius females in our history, very similar to Grace Hopper. Like, look at these names that just shifted up. Many of these names, even though these people are incredibly successful, they are incredibly influential in sciences, social sciences, in arts, in theater, in literature, so on and so forth. None of these names, other than Madame Curie, should be familiar to you, even though we immediately recognize male geniuses. And if I were to put more, I'm sure the names would ring a bell without me pontificating it on you. So I would like to argue that yes, when it comes to the right tail of normal distribution, there are more criminally insane and lower IQ men. I would like to think the number is not different when it comes to geniuses in females and males. It is due to lack of encouragement, acknowledgement, recognition, and obviously introduction to society via media tools and media strategies. So because their accomplishments often go unnoticed, unappreciated, and unawarded, the names are not as familiar to us as male success stories. So in order to make a point, they looked at the animals and compared the males with females. They found out that the female chimpanzees learn complex tasks as easily as their male counterparts. Female gorillas were able to talk sign language as well as males. Female guide dogs were as capable as their male counterparts at their jobs, which is to guide people who need guidance. Female dolphins perform practical jokes as other males. They looked at the parents. They can mime and talk as well as males. There's no significant difference. And they looked at the rats and mice running equally successfully and efficiently as rats that are males. So nature also contradicts the stigma, meaning there's an IQ difference between men and women in general, and they are different by birth. There are additional stigmas associated with females. Women are primarily identified with their homes and household activities or domestic chores. Men are usually identified with work. We ask, hey, what does he do? Even though, it's very uncommon to hear this question when you are talking about a woman. Even though many women scientists and engineers persist in their pursuit of academic careers, despite that they have severe conflicts between their roles as parents, caregivers, and being a professional, even though they are not often as recognized as their male peers, and this dedication, trying to continue their careers, despite the additional roles and responsibilities they have to incur because of who they are, often go unnoticed, and it is frowned upon by society and professional colleagues. Women are usually stigmatized as they are not able to deal with difficulties, they are more frantic, they are more hysterical, so on and so forth. Even though I have never raised my voice for the past 25 years of my career, and I have seen many male kick, scream, and kick out of people from their offices. Men seem to be perceived as more resilient. But then they looked at the publication productivity of women, which has increased significantly over the past 3 decades. The critical factor affecting publication productivity is to have access to institutional resources, married, children, elder care, additional responsibilities, etc., had minimal effects on the publication number. It was mostly the institutional access and academic opportunities for women. Women are perceived not to be very good at math. They are better in drawing, arts, and drama, so on and so forth. And boys are more successful in mathematics. Even though looking at the math scores in national exams and national evaluations, there's no significant difference between male and female during their elementary school education. The difference comes from demographic variances. So if you are coming from a disadvantaged family with limited resources to support your education, or with people who are going to be serving as role models who would entice you to learn more in the classroom, then you tend to do less successfully compared to more fortunate backgrounds and demographics. So there's no difference when it comes to looking at the statistics. Even though men tend to get more AP classes compared to women because they are given advantage by the parents, and they are steered towards AP classes by their parents if they are male. Women, because they are consensus builders, are perceived as more collaborative than competitive. Collaborative, even though it sounds like a compliment here, it is implying that they cannot have leadership positions. They are good team players, but not necessarily competitive or ambitious, which are two skills that are needed to lead either the organization or the groups you are responsible for. even though in reality, similar proportions of men and women science and engineering doctorates plan to enter postdoctoral studies or academic employment. So there's no difference in when it comes to the ambition seeking career advancement opportunities between male and female scholars. Women are tend to be more ignorant of opportunities, whereas men are more aware of them. Even though scientists like to believe that they choose the best based on objective criteria, the decisions are obviously influenced by factors, including biases about race, sex, geographic location of a university, age. So not everybody is equal when you look at the objective criteria that makes and defines an individual. So their choices obviously are a factor of several criteria and not only due to the gender they identify themselves with. It would be naive to think otherwise, I think. Women are stigmatized as biologically governed, meaning they are more perceptive and sensitive to biological influences. Even though men are able to escape biology and be more stable and stagnant throughout their journey in life. On the average, women take, due to childbearing, having children, so the time off during their early careers to give childcare, to provide childcare to their children, which is disproportional to women. But when you look at the middle-age statistics, so we are talking about early career here, when a woman is more likely to have children. When you take the overall life expectancy of a profession across two genders, men at the end of the day are more likely to take more leaves of absence due to being sick compared than a woman. So women make up for the loss of the time during their careers if they continue in the professional life after bearing children. However, even if they do so, many of the challenges await. For me, if you would like to penalize somebody, you either take their time or money. The others are emotional disruptions, even though they are significant, right? Because if you don't have the energy, if you don't feel you are accepted, included, fairly treated, respectfully treated, if you think the next guy, even though you're working twice as hard for half the pay, gets the promotion where you're left out, things become also emotionally very challenging and obviously detrimental to your career advancement. So they looked at the workforce, female workforce, and 50% said, hey, because of how other people perceive me, my outcomes were interpreted differently than the outcomes of my male colleagues. 40% said they have been passed over for a project or a promotion that they worked really hard for and they believe they deserved because of their gender. 30% of the women who participated in the survey said people make comments about how they dress and how they look. And they are also commented on their physical gestures and mimics, saying you smile a lot, you laugh a lot, you don't speak loud enough, so on and so forth. Their conversations are more interrupted during the meetings compared to men. Or they are asked to bring coffee, clean up the table, even though it's not their responsibility, or take notes just because of their gender. They found out that the male colleague, even though the job description is the same, was getting paid more, had a higher compensation, even though they had the same job requirements, or they are treated, and this is very common in healthcare, they are mistaken, even though they are a physician, they are mistaken as a nurse or a nurse practitioner, so on and so forth at the hospitals. They are treated differently, being perceived as a lower rank professional because of their gender. I tried to abbreviate woman in the beginning of my presentation to categorize the major challenges in my opinion. Then I did the same thing to the same word, sharing my 2 cents with you from what I have learned over my profession. First of all, we cannot play the gender card in every opportunity. We have to work really hard. We have to work diligently. We have to work to create a diverse, inclusive work environment, and we have to produce, meaning we have to be best that we can be in our profession. For years, I used to get agitated if somebody stated that I was a female, a mother, a wife, or a female STEM professional, or if somebody made a comment in a similar line, because I never identified myself as a woman. I thought being gender neutral and not giving any chance to anyone to say something about your personal family life would make me a better person, and I would be a better role model. Then experiencing in real life and reading a lot on the topic, I do acknowledge that I was incredibly mistaken. I think if we want to empower the females around us, our colleagues, our supervisors, to give them a lesson, to show them a lesson, our students, or females that are in their early careers, I think we have to embrace our identity, whatever that identity might be for you. I always make a joke about my child, about the fact that I'm a woman. I usually bring it up so that first, females around me are going to feel comfortable and identify with me. And the others who do not identify themselves as a female will also try to see an open-minded individual who is speaking with an agenda. Many of the women, especially in STEM careers, known to take the ladder with them after they climbed it. So the thinking being, hey, I was able to achieve this despite the several obstacles, disadvantages. So if I was able to do this, the others should also be able to do that. I have no empathy for females or up and coming early career professionals. It cannot be that. We have to create a better profession. If you're the chair of the department, a better department. If you're in charge of the university, a better university for the next generation, so that they are not gonna encounter the same difficulties, rediscover the wheel, and they are not gonna be mirroring what you have done in order to build your career. There has to be a proof, a residue of the impact of the fight you have given so diligently. To begin with, you have to acknowledge the disparity. You have to acknowledge that working conditions, the way they are treated, the way they are paid, compensated, the way they are perceived are different than men. There is no difference between men and women when it comes to pay and all. It does exist. It is statistically proven. There are gazillions of reports that have been published on the topic. even though you would think that all this attention being given to disparity because of gender would help diminish it or at least lessen it. On the contrary, this seems to be highlighted in magnitude with very little return when it comes to creating an inclusive and a diverse environment. Whatever you do, we are not gonna exist alone, and we won't be able to achieve everything alone in this age and era. We are connected. We are parts of a larger entity. You have to network. You have to build a network for professional development and emotional support. And you have to build it with men and women, male and female, non-binaries, whatever gender you might be dealing with. But you have to establish a network and seize every opportunity to make your voices heard and to establish a strong network of support without creating a discriminative environment for males around you. We have to work together, educating as we go, enlightening as we go. The number of STEM jobs in the United States is increasing, both for female and male workforce. But if you could see, obviously it is increasing at a higher acceleration, higher speed compared to female for male employees. So as part of my concluding remarks, be confident and embrace growth mindset. I do not react to every challenge. I try not to internalize. I try to keep an open mind and not to see everything from one perspective only. I try to understand what's being said, why they are saying it, what is their preconceived perception of me, what are the common beliefs, so that I try to take a higher voice when it comes to disparity because of my gender. This is definitely not my favorite movie, but this is definitely my favorite quote. The movie being, I'm not sure if you remember, The Interpreter, where Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn were starring. It was directed by Sidney Pollack. At the end of the movie, Nicole Kidman is making someone, a dictator, read something, a quote from the book he has written decades ago. It says, the gunfire around us makes it hard to hear, but the human voice is different from other sounds. It can be heard over noises that bury everything else, even when it is not shouting, even when it is just a whisper. Even the lowest whisper can be heard over armies when it is telling the truth. So this is my favorite quote of all times. Human voice is truly different than others, and we don't have to scream. We just have to speak the truth and obviously support our arguments with data in this data and information age. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so sorry if I took a lot of time. I tried to cut it short, and I tried to go as fast as possible, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Edith Hocam. So if we have any questions and comments, and I'm checking if we have a foreign attendees, so maybe we can switch to Turkish if needed.
Sure.
Türkçe sorularımızı da alabiliriz. Hocam tekrar teşekkür ediyorum ben.
Ben teşekkür ederim Murat Hocam. Çok teşekkürler davetiniz için, bu konuşma fırsatını verdiğiniz için, bu anlamlı günde özellikle. Çok teşekkürler.
Bir şey söyleyebilir miyim?
Yasemin Hocam buyurun.
Türkçe söylemek istiyorum. İngilizce de söyleyebilirim ama madem katılımcıların hepsi Türkçe konuşuyor. Öncelikle bize katılımınız ve bu güzel seçkin konuşmayı yaptığınız için çok teşekkür ederim. Ama her ne kadar bizim fakültemiz, üniversitemiz bu konuda çok ayrımcı olmasa da birçok kadın bilim insanımız olmasına rağmen örneğin bizim fakültede 2 kadın dekan yardımcımız olmasına rağmen Türkiye'de hala çok zor kadın olmak. Bu tabii ki uluslararası veriler sundunuz, çok güzel. Şu an için Türkiye'ye dair verebileceğiniz bir takım verileriniz var mıdır? Çünkü birçok şey yani belli bizim gibi insanlar için ailelerinin koruduğu, eğittiği, topluma sunduğu, siz de buna dahilsiniz, ben de buna dahilim. Büyük bir şans, hayat şansı diyelim ama birçok kızımızın bunlara erişemediği bir durum da söz konusu. Türkiye'de hala gerçekten zor kadın olmakta. Belki iyileştirici, hani sesimizi çıkartalım, yükseltelim diyoruz ama çevre, gelenekler, yaşam koşulları, aile bunlar çok baskın. Özellikle de bir parça bizim gibi hem Batı hem Doğu arasında kalan toplumlarda da büyük problem. Birçok şey aşmış olmamıza rağmen yurt dışında da görüyorum çok kadın bilim insanımız var bizim aslında. Bu bir çelişki gibi ama mesela bizim üniversitemizde de kız öğrenciler ve kadın bilim insanlarımız çok fazla. Ama öbür taraftan çok dehşet şeyler de yaşanıyor. Bunlara dair bir yorumunuzu almak isterim şahsen. Yani biraz daha Türkiye'ye dair bir şeyler almak isterim.
Elbette. Bir kere Türkiye'de kadın olmak zor. Türkiye'de çıkaralım, kadın olmak zor. Çalışın, çalışmayın. Sevgili Bildan, seni görmek ne kadar güzel. Türkiye'de istatistik çok güncel değil kadın konusunda. Benim her yerde kadın olmak zor. İşte Doğu Batı dediniz. Amerika'da da durum çok farklı değil. Hiçbir ülkede çok farklı değil. Ben çözümü tek kişi gene de çok büyük değişiklikler yapabilecek olmasına rağmen etkisini arttırmak için mutlaka örgütlenmek diyorum. Burada All Arkin diye kar amaçlı olmayan bir organizasyon var. Ben onun danışma kuruluna girdim. Parasını ödeyemeyecek olan ailelere çocuk bakım merkezleri yaratıyorlar. Örneğin işi olmayan bir kadını eğitiyor, onlara sertifika veriyor, sağlık danışmanlığı, bütçe danışmanlığı veriyor. O kadın hem kendi evinde kendi çocuğuna hem de komşularının çocuklarına bakıyor. Böylece o kadınlar işe gidebiliyorlar. Hem kadın bir iş sahibi oluyor, hem çevresindeki, komünitesindeki insanlar işe gidebiliyor. Öyle bir çözüm üretilmiş. Mutlaka bir organizasyonla eşleşmek gerekiyor. Bunlar tabii kar amaçlı olmayan sosyal dayanışma kurumları olabilir. Kar amaçlı olmayan kadın gelişimine yönelik organizasyonlar, örgütler olabilir. Diğerleri teknik bir sürü özellikle mühendislik ve teknik alanda çalışan öğretim üyeleri için IEEE şu anda Birleşmiş Milletler'in AI for Good, Artificial Intelligence for Good konsorsiyumunun mottosunu benimsemişler. Ben IEEE Technology Engineering Management'ın yönetim kuruluna seçildim. Onun da akademik program başkanlığına getirildim. Onun amacıyla müfredat geliştiriyoruz. İşte bu yapay zeka, makine öğrenimi, pattern recognition, şimdi çıkaramadım şeyde Türkçesini, filanın kadınları, işte az gelirli olanları vesaireyi nasıl dahil edebiliriz bu gelişimlere, bu teknolojik ilerlemelere. Örneğin şimdi pandemik dolayısıyla bütün dersler online'a çekildi. Asenkronus veriyorsanız, yani ders notlarını bir yere post edip işte öğrencilere ödevlerini yapıp siz de notluyorsanız o kolay. Ama benim online derslerimde bana olan saygı sonsuz, çünkü beni erkek sanıyorlar, ismimin kadın olduğunu anlamıyorlar. Hayatım çok kolay oluyor. Sınıfta ders verdiğimde yani sizi görüyorlar tabii. Orada da eskiden böyle girip dersime başlar, işte espri yok, bir şey yok, çıkardım. Şimdi bir baktım böyle olmuyor, karakterime farklı. Yani söylemeye çalıştım, mutlaka arkanıza birilerini almanız gerekiyor. Bir teknik organizasyonda özellikle kadınlara çok önem veriliyor, öğrencilere çok önem veriliyor. IEEE bunların başında, SUI dedikleri Society of Human Engineers, Semahat Demir şu anda rektörümüz, SUI'nin başkanıydı. Ondan sonra kardeşi Sıdıka Demir gene çok başarılı bir teknik eleman, Amerika'da başkanıydı. O ikisi Türk, kadınlara öncelik verdiler mühendislik alanında. Mutlaka bir organizasyona girin derim. Yani SUI'nin Türkiye'de eşlenikleri var. IEEE zaten Türkiye'de çok aktif. Bir sürü professional memberları var. Non-profit organizasyonları ben birkaç tanesini biliyorum ve destekliyorum buradan. Şu anda hangisi daha popüler, hangisi daha iyi bilmiyorum ama Connecticut Science Center var burada bizim, çok büyük bir müze gibi. Genelde çocukları işte bilim ve teknolojiye alıştırmaya çalışan bir müze. Pandemik başladığında benimle bir görüşme yaptılar. İşte ne yapıyorsun, ne ediyorsun, mühendis olmanın nasıl bir faydası oldu, kadın olarak işte ne hissediyorsun falan. Söylediğim oradaki bence pek önemli şey, Covid bize bir şeyi çok iyi anlattı. Tedarik zincirinin ne olduğunu bilmeyen kalmadı. Ama onun dışında tek başına hayatta kalmanın hiçbir anlamı olmadığını kanıtladı. Yani ev ahalisindeki birisi ölürse, komşun ölürse, mahallendeki insanların yarısı ölür, dükkanların %90'ı kapanır. Orada böyle Amerikan filmlerindeki toz sokaklarda yuvarlanır duruma düşersen, kepenkleri kırılmış, camları yok olmuş. Mümkün değil ki kurtulamayız. Herkes anladı ki komünitenin sizle beraber yükselmesi lazım. Yani siz yükseliyorsanız mutlaka çevrenizde yanınıza almanız lazım. Genel bakış açısı benim gördüğüm Türkiye'ye özgü değil, kesinlikle global bir problem. Growth mindset yok, açık fikirlilik yok. İnsanlar genelde cevap vermek için dinliyorlar, anlamak için değil. Ben önce anlamaya hani çalışmanın, hemen hepimiz akademisyeniz, biz çok eleştirel insanlarız, işte doğru bildiğine inanan insanlarız, işte rasyonel bilime, dataya bağlı konuşan insanlarız. Ama asıl rolümüz eğitmek. Ben bu insanları davranışımla eğitebilirim, verdiğim istatistiklerle eğitebilirim. Düşünce yapısı bana çok yardımcı oluyor. Çünkü Türkiye'de Türk kadın olmak, Amerika'da Türk kadın olmaktan daha kolay diyebilirim. Çünkü zaten kadınlara çok kucak açmamış bir disiplinde çalışıp var olmaya ve yükselmeye çaba gösterirken üstüne yaşla ilgili stigma, görünüşünle ilgili stigma, aksanınla ilgili stigma bağlanınca işler biraz daha karmaşık hale gelebiliyor. Benim tek öğrendiğim şey ve önerebileceğim şey, acılaşmadan, insanları yabancılaştırmadan hep beraber bir çözüm bulmak ve hepsinin altı, her şeyin, her sorunun altı eğitimden geçiyor. Eğitimsiz bir insanla ne konuşmanızın, ne anlaşmanızın imkanı var. Yani emin olacaksınız ki yanınızdaki insan komşunuz, komşunuzun oğlu, kızı, işte dükkandaki çırağın kuzeni eğitim alacak. Başka hiçbir yolu yok aydınlaşmanın. Çünkü cahil insanla konuşmak ya da bir yere varmanın bence hiçbir imkanı yok. Biz de o yüzden üniversitede çalışıyoruz. Az para, çok etkinlikle. Ama Türkiye'de istatistik bulmak çok zor. Tek istatistik United Nations'tan veriliyor ülkeyle ilgili. Ya eski ya çok güvenilir değil. Türkiye'nin bir tek en büyük avantajı kontrat bazlı değil işler. Örneğin ben Yıldız'dan mezun olduğumda, araştırma görevlisi olarak işe alındığımda, devlet memuru olarak başladığımda benim kontratım O da arkadaşımın kontratıyla aynıydı. Çünkü görev üzerinden kontrat veriliyor. Burada öyle değil. Burada bireysel kontrat veriliyor. İşin içine bireysellik geldiğinde bütün dinamik değişiyor. Bir, confidential. Yani siz 20 senedir aynı adamla odanın içerisinde çalışıyor olabilirsiniz. Ne maaş aldığını bilmezsiniz.
Evet, yurt dışında öyle.
Sizden mutlaka daha yüksek alıyordur yani o given. İşte siz çocuk doğuracaksınız, kadınsınız zaten işte eve yemeğe koşturacaksın. Adamlar yani kafasında böyle bir şey var. Türkiye o bakımdan çok avantajlı. Kontrat bazlı olmadığı için şey bazlı.
Evet.
Makam bazlı.
Wage difference göstermiştiniz.
Çok teşekkür ederim, sağ olun.
Siz sağ olun.
Yasemin Hocam teşekkürler.
Ben teşekkür ederim Murat Hocam bu etkinlik için.
Duyuyor musunuz Elif Hocam?
Çok iyi duyuyorum.
Şimdi wage difference göstermiştiniz ya, orada ben şeyi merak ettim. Aynı meslekteki bir kadın ve erkeğin aldığı miktarların kıyaslamasıydı değil mi o?
Tabii.
Çünkü şunu ben yine dediğiniz gibi Türkiye'de aynı diyorum. Hani tam anlayamadım ben onu çünkü. Aynı iş yapıyorsak aynı olmuyor mu? Yanlış bir şey de söylemeyeyim de.
Türkiye'de kesinlikle aynı. Burada öyle değil. Burada örneğin yardımcı doçent olarak endüstri mühendisliği departmanını alıyor. Al diyor sana kontrat. İşte yılda diyor ne diyelim 300.000 dolar vereceğim. Arkanızdan başkası giriyor aynı pozisyona. Al diyor sana 100.000 dolar vereceğim diyor. Bir kere ve siz bunu bilmiyorsunuz. Yanınızdaki kaç alıyor? Bir önceki insana ne verdiler? Burada en iyi tutulan sır maaş. Öldürün kimse maaşını söylemez. Ve bilemezsiniz de. Çünkü kontrat bazlı. Türkiye'de öyle değil. Makam üzerinden gidiyor. Özellikle devlette.
Evet. Teşekkür
Yani o çok büyük bir avantaj bence.
Evet hocam. Başka sorumuz varsa alabiliriz. Süreyi de bayağı açtık bu arada. Başka sorumuz yoksa ben hocamıza teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Elif Hocam çok teşekkürler. Sizin nezdinizde tüm kadınların Kadınlar Günü'nü de kutluyoruz bu arada. Çok teşekkür ediyorum enstitüm adına da ben. İyi akşamlar diyeceğim buradan ama size orada yeni sabahın erken saatleri değil mi?
11'e 20 var.
Boston'dasınız.
New Haven'dayım.
New Haven'da pardon. Tamamdır. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Başka sorumuz yok zannediyorum. Ali Fuat Hocam da buradalar. Murat Turhan Hocam Uluslararası İlişkilerden.
Nihan Hocam da burada. Bildan Hocam da burada. Görüyorum. Çok çok sevgiler, çok saygılar.
Elif çok teşekkür ederiz. Seni görmek, dinlemek çok güzeldi.
Hiç mi değişmezsiniz? Hayat yormuyor diyeceğim ama ne kadar çalıştığınızı ben biliyorum.
Sen de öylesin maşallah.
Sağ olun. Orada sağlık sektörümüz sağ olun.
Elif'ciğim çok teşekkür ederiz. Çok mersi. Çok güzel bir sunum oldu.
Çok
Seni
sağ olun
görmek çok
hocam.
güzeldi.
Bu da üstüne katma değeri oldu benim için. Sizden haber almak çok güzel. Bütün emeğiniz için çok teşekkürler. Sayenizde buraya geldik. Şimdi de işte konuşma yapıyoruz. Çok sağ olun.
Çok teşekkürler.
Çok güzel.
Hocam.
Tebrik ediyorum.
Teşekkür
Türkiye'ye
ederim.
geldiğinde bekliyoruz.
Mutlaka şu pandemiyi halledelim hemen
İnşallah.
geleceğim.
Evet,
Bir aşımızda olalım.
evet, pandemi geçer geçmez bekliyoruz.
Bekliyoruz.
Sağ olun hocam. Çok teşekkürler. Kadınlar Gününüz kutlu olsun. Herkesin, kadınların, erkeklerin.
Çok teşekkürler.
Güzel, sağlıklı günler diliyorum. Çok teşekkürler.
İyi
Biz de
günler.
teşekkür ederiz.
Herkese çok teşekkür
Teşekkürler Elif Hocam. Mersi.
Bye bye. Hayırlı günler. Bye. Sağ olun hocam.